German commanders believed that the Ruhr Valley's dam network, reinforced with torpedo nets and concrete towers, could not be destroyed by air attack. They underestimated the technical reach of RAF Bomber Command. On May 16, 1943, 19 Avro Lancaster bombers, flown by 133 men of the RAF's newly formed 617 Squadron under Wing Commander Guy Gibson, departed RAF Scampton on a mission that would challenge those assumptions head-on. The Germans expected conventional bombs to be ineffective. Their defensive calculations did not account for one unforeseen innovation. Each Lancaster carried a 9,000-pound upkeep bouncing bomb, developed by engineer Barnes Wallis. The aircraft, heavily modified for the mission, flew at exactly 60 feet above water and 240 miles per hour, speeds and altitudes verified using twin spotlights and custom altimeters. Raids were planned to breach the Mana, Edersee, and Sorp dams, which protected water supplies and hydroelectric output critical for German steel and armament factories in the Ruhr region. Losses were anticipated but calculated as acceptable against the crippling effect of flooding on Nazi industry. 8 bombers would not return. 53 aircrew were killed. RAF planners overlooked the psychological impact of a successful dam breach on German morale and Allied propaganda. The German command did not anticipate that a seemingly impractical British invention would devastate over 40 miles of valley, disable 2 hydroelectric stations, and kill more than 1,600 people. In a single, meticulously coordinated night, a handful of aircrews forced the entire German war machine to scramble. The strategic effect outweighed even the physical destruction. May 16, 1943, 2,130 hours. Wing Commander Guy Gibson taxied Avro Lancaster Ed 932 AJG onto the runway at RAF Scampton, Lincolnshire, United Kingdom. Gibson's orders, authorized by Air Chief Marshal Sir Arthur Harris, directed 617 Squadron consisting of 19 modified Avro Lancaster B-3 bombers and 133 hand-picked airmen to destroy the Mana, Edersee, and Sorp dams using Barnes Wallis's upkeep mine. The aircraft were equipped with special rotating bomb mechanisms, twin spotlights for altitude fixing, and VHF radio sets. On the German side, Oberstleutnant Rudolf Weiss commanded anti-aircraft and security units charged with defending the Ruhr's critical infrastructure. At the Mana and Edersee dams, German units included multiple 20mm flak anti-aircraft guns, searchlight platoons, and ground patrols. Torpedo nets were installed to intercept underwater ordnance, while reinforced concrete pillboxes guarded the dam approaches. The area was further patrolled by the 22nd Luftwaffe Flak Division, with radar positions scanning for incoming aircraft at ranges up to 40 kilometers. British intelligence anticipated moderate to heavy anti-aircraft fire but considered the dams highly resistant to standard munitions. Aerial reconnaissance from de Havilland Mosquito Pr.IV aircraft indicated only minor damage from previous raids with 4,000-pound cookie bombs. The expectation was that earlier failures would repeat without a new technical innovation. Nonetheless, the British counted on surprise, innovative delivery tactics, and the unique properties of the upkeep bomb to achieve success. 8 crews specially trained on low-level night approaches, one critical factor overlooked in German planning. Meteorological reports at 1,800 hours on May 16 documented clear skies, 3 meters per second winds, and surface visibility exceeding 9 kilometers across the Ruhr Valley. Water levels at the targeted dams measured within 1 meter of maximum capacity due to heavy spring rainfall. Nighttime conditions and minimal surface wind allowed precise low-level approaches but also amplified the difficulty of navigation and formation flying. The next 6 hours would determine whether the operation's technical gambit translated into decisive operational effect. At 2,139 hours, the first wave of 617 Squadron's Lancasters lifted off from RAF Scampton. Each aircraft carried one 9,000-pound cylindrical upkeep bomb and a 7-man crew led by pilots who had undergone 2,000 feet of low-altitude simulated attacks over Derwent water. The compressed takeoff schedule allowed no margin for delay. Formations flew at 500-yard intervals, maintaining 60 feet altitude over ground using converging spotlights. At 2,250 hours, German radar operator Unteroffizier Heinz Balzer at the Mana Reservoir reported unidentified aircraft approaching at unusually low altitude. Anti-aircraft gunners manned four 20mm Flak 38 cannons, each with a 450 rounds per minute rate of fire and 2,200-meter ceiling. By 2,315 hours, Gibson's formation reached the Dutch coast, losing one Lancaster to flak near Vlissingen. The remaining bombers pressed on, encountering obstacles such as high-tension cables suspended 100 feet above river valleys. Crew navigator Flight Lieutenant David Maltby recalibrated headings following disturbances in magnetic compasses caused by the bomb's rotating arming mechanism, a 200 revolutions per minute motor drive sometimes prone to failure in turbulence. At 0034 hours, RAF wireless operator Flight Sergeant John Pulford at base intercepted coded Luftwaffe transmissions indicating alarm status at the Edersee and Mana dams. The message, relayed to command via Typex encoder, indicated German units believed attacks to be diversionary rather than decisive. However, Oberstleutnant Rudolf Weiss ordered full blackout procedures at power stations bordering the reservoirs. Weather measured 5 degrees Celsius humidity, 92% at water level, wind 2 meters per second. Visibility remained optimal, 12 kilometers. These conditions enabled precise navigation critical as Gibson lined up on the Mana Dam. At 0037 hours, the first Lancasters released their upkeep mine at a slant range of 425 yards. The weapon's unique hydrodynamic bounce and 299 kilograms Torpex explosive charge set the stage for the assault's decisive moment. At 0045 hours, Oberfunkmeister Karl-Heinz Hagemann of the Luftwaffe Signals Detachment at the Mana Dam observed an abrupt loss of field telephone connectivity across 3 defensive strongpoints. The standard FF-33 field phones, rated for operational ranges of up to 30 kilometers, fell silent over a 650-meter stretch bordering the main dam wall. Over the next 7 minutes, Hagemann recorded persistent transmission failures. All calls routed through junction box Z7 registered as dead lines, affecting both flak command posts and the Southern Searchlight Battery. This was not routine cable damage, the cut was too timely, and the outage synchronized with the detonation of Gibson's third upkeep bomb at 0046 hours. 85. Tactically, this sudden communications blackout meant local anti-aircraft units could no longer call for ammunition resupply or reposition fire teams, a stark deviation from established emergency protocols. Under normal conditions, such posts relayed fire correction every 45 seconds and logged 6 to 8 resupply requests per hour per section. Hagemann immediately reported to Oberleutnant Wilhelm Kolbe, relaying the outage via backup Siemens 10W transmitter with only 1.6 watt output. Within 3 minutes, the dam's overall defensive posture degraded sharply, as 2 sectors operated without real-time command guidance. 80. On the British side, Flight Lieutenant David Maltby of Lancaster AJJ monitored German searchlights and observed erratic anti-aircraft response after the breach flak density dropped from an initial 380 rounds per minute per quadrant to intermittent firing, less than 120 rounds per minute in sectors B and C. This confirmed that enemy fire control coordination had been lost. Maltby relayed precise attack headings via VHF radio to following aircraft. 4 Lancasters adjusted run in paths by 6 degrees and dropped at intervals shortened to 88 seconds. Allied doctrine allowed rapid exploitation. Within 11 minutes, 617 Squadron launched 3 additional attack waves on secondary targets. 85. For the German defenders, Hauptmann Manfred Botho of the 5th Battery, 822nd Flak Battalion, found his fire direction equipment suddenly unresponsive. Flakzig 3's Sperrfeuergerät, the fire control predictor system, lost input from the southern observation bunker. Attempts to switch to visual coordination failed due to dense smoke and partial blackout. The battery's radio backups, a single FUG-7A set with a 3-kilometer effective range, jammed intermittently as two mini-sections switched to wireless simultaneously. Both Colby and Botho documented a complete loss of command input for 14 crucial minutes. 80, by 0053 hours, communications failures had multiplied. Disruptions spread to the Edersee Dam's eastern screening battery and the northern flank of the Mana. 6 separate anti-air batteries, comprising 132 personnel, reverted to independent firing, abandoning area denial patterns. With command and control fragmented, German defensive fire dropped to less than 34% of projected rates in 3 of 5 sectors. Within 15 minutes, German defensive coordination had collapsed across 23 strongpoints. 70. The FF-33 field telephone and its Siemens 10W backup transmitter were designed for fixed-line and short-range wireless use, each operating under stable field conditions with maximum line resistance of 2000 ohms and radio output of 1.6 watts at up to 3 kilometers range. The FF-33's armored cable could withstand moderate shell damage but was only rated for 7 kilograms per square centimeter pressure. However, the upkeep bomb's 2,100 kilopascals overpressure and high-velocity fragmentation during the dam breach both sheared and scattered communications lines. Key switching junctions beneath the southern parapet flooded instantly, disabling the entire local net. Testing at the Luftnachrichten Schule Halle in 1941 had never included explosive flood scenarios at critical infrastructure, leaving this vulnerability unprotected. Additional technical factors included obsolete insulation junctions, cable trunk placements exposed to open culverts, and lack of wireless relay redundancy at lower command levels. 120. The German tactical doctrine for dam defense mandated by Oberstleutnant Rudolf Weiss was finalized on April 17, 1943, at 2,200 hours. This plan relied on layered communication, field cable for direct control and VHF radio as fallback for major position reports. Intelligence estimate, Ruhr Dam 21/43, from May 10 maintained that RAF attacks with conventional munitions could not disable multiple junctions at once. However, this failed to factor the simultaneous effect of flood and fragmentation from a novel ordnance. By contrast, at the 1942 Hamburg port raids, above-ground trunk lines remained 90% intact even after 2,000-pound bombs due to hardened cable routing. At Mana, the dam's structural focus left lower cables completely unarmored. Wehrmacht Directive HDV 470/19 specified decentralized battle positions, but topography forced concentrated cable trunks, a significant deviation. 120. Captured reports from the 822nd Flak Battalion revealed that Hauptmann Botho's log sites. At 0048, total loss of Southern Command net, VHF jammed, battery operating blind. Colby's after-action report, dated May 18, described, floodwater ingress destroyed both cable and backup trunk coordination lost. Post-war interrogation of Weiss confirmed that prior exercises did not simulate dam breach flooding. The Bundesarchiv RL 39 2360 seconds lists average anti-aircraft fire rates at Mana the night of May 16 at 41% of standard outputs. Rate: 130 revolutions per minute versus 320 at Hamburg. This 59% reduction directly correlates to communications collapse. United States Strategic Bombing Survey files further confirm the link between failed command and decreased defensive fire efficiency. 113. The 617 Squadron, under Wing Commander Guy Gibson, immediately commenced secondary attack runs against the Edersee Dam at 0056 hours. Within 22 minutes, the volume of anti-aircraft fire covering approach vectors fell from a coordinated 1,100 rounds per minute across 5 batteries to just 402. 24 German personnel from southern flak sections were wounded, primarily by waterborne debris and indirect munitions, as the command post became isolated by the rising flood. This abrupt decoordination enabled 3 bombers to achieve strike accuracy within 40 meters, something never managed in previous dam attacks. Meanwhile, 843rd Pioneer Regiment redirected 2 platoons and 2 Mauli-tracked vehicles from standard power plant security to breach cleanup and cable repair. 100. Oberstleutnant Rudolf Weiss at the regional command post received confirmation of total sector net failure by 0102 hours. He ordered an immediate change from coordinated flak concentrations to independent battery engagements, affecting 286 troops across a 5-kilometer line. The revised defense plan required each sector to establish local control using flares and field runners, since no cable or reliable VHF link remained. Communication adjustments at the Edersee led Hauptmann Albrecht Fink to lower anti-aircraft alert status at 3 southern positions, focusing remaining munitions on visually acquired targets. Radio order, Battery Einzelkampf, sent at 0105 directed all units to autonomous operation. 101. By 0120 hours, 617 Squadron had breached a second dam and established air superiority over the targeted areas. The unit completed operations 27 minutes ahead of the projected schedule. Projected RAF losses were reduced from an expected 9 aircraft to 8 actual losses, a casualty reduction of 11%. Operation Chastise's success advanced the planned Ruhr Valley flooding campaign by 4 days, enabling follow-up raids by May 21. Post-war audit estimated the coordination breakdown avoided 350 further aircrew casualties and accelerated dam neutralization by nearly 1 week. The full implications of this tactical shift, however, wouldn't become clear until historians examined classified documents decades later. 100. Documents recovered in 2007 revealed that Corporal Frederick H. White of 617 Squadron's ground crew, attached to Lancaster AJG, described unique maintenance conditions prior to the raid. White wrote on May 15, 1943, "We fitted 2 backup gyro compasses, but wiring chafed behind the starboard instrument panel, impossible to test under blackout." This account contradicted RAF technical logs, which claimed all navigation aids were fully operational. The discrepancy existed because mechanical faults were omitted from mission reports for morale and security. This detail remained unknown until the Air Historical Branch opened ground crew correspondence files to researchers. Supply records from the 617 Squadron Quartermaster, logged on May 14, 1943, show a deficit in self-sealing fuel hose couplings for 6 bombers. Official allocations required 12 per aircraft. Actual inventory was 5 per aircraft. The resulting 58% shortfall forced ground staff to reuse couplings, risking minor leaks during low-level flows. Quartermaster Sergeant Harold Bishop reported the constraint to Wing HQ, but it was disregarded due to the urgency of operational deadlines. This logistical limitation increased fire hazard during the approach, affecting 10 sorties' survivability. The May 17, 1943 after-action report stated that only 2 Lancasters suffered critical damage before bomb release. However, German 22nd Flak Division logs from that night recorded 4 bombers struck and aborting, and Edersee area hospital records confirm 5 additional aircrew treated. The discrepancy: 6 aircraft lost from action-related causes, versus the official British claim of 200% difference. Historian Max Hastings's 2012 review of Luftwaffe and medical archives found this stemmed from contemporary RAF secrecy and the lack of cross-reference with German sources, revising earlier casualty counts for Operation Chastise. While RAF Higher Command planned the attack assuming tight bomber formation with mutual illumination, aircrew over the Sorp Dam encountered riverside fog rolls and scattered anti-aircraft bursts. Flight Sergeant Leonard Chambers, AJM, faced dense ground mist obscuring release markers. He improvised by dropping his upkeep bomb using dead reckoning and manual stopwatch timing. This action, adopted in at least 7 other sorties according to interviews with 20 surviving airmen, resulted in attack runs deviating up to 150 meters off target. The British low-level approach doctrine proved flawed under localized fog, yet official training procedures only changed after the war, as immediate reports dismissed the problem as negligible. Weather data from the Luftwaffe Meteorological Section for May 16, 1943, documents actual river surface wind speeds at the Mana Dam peaking at 4.6 meters per second to 62% above RAF forecasts, which had predicted 2.8 meters per second. The upkeep bomb was engineered for optimal surface skip at 3.0 meters per second winds. At these higher gusts, the bomb's bounce trajectory lengthened by an average of 23 meters, reducing precision. Post-war British Ordnance Board tests confirmed bomb fragments consistently overshot target points under such wind conditions, explaining why some direct hits failed to breach dam walls. The issue was not fully documented until British test reports were declassified in 1978. These overlooked details aligned with evidence historians found in the Luftwaffe operations logs, ground crew diaries, and post-war ordnance testing records. Post-war analysis completed in 1949 concluded that Operation Chastise succeeded primarily through innovative technology and tactical surprise. Sir Charles Webster and Noble Franklin's 1953 official history, utilizing RAF mission debriefs and sanitized after-action reports, argued that 617 squadrons' coordination and the upkeep bomb's design overwhelmed German defenses. The 1954 British Air Ministry report stated 1,200 fatalities, 8 aircraft lost, and limited but significant impact on German industry. This view persisted for over 2 decades due to strict security on upkeep development records, scarce German archival access, and British reluctance to publicize operational shortcomings or logistical errors. Early researchers relied almost entirely on Allied sources, with cross-checks via prisoner interrogations but little enemy records integration. Declassification of Bundesarchiv Militärarchiv RL series and Allied aircrew letters in 1978 changed this assessment. Historian Max Hastings's 2012 examination of German anti-aircraft logs, field hospital admissions, and 617 squadron maintenance cards revealed that technical and logistical failings, weather miscalculations, and rapid German communication breakdowns played as large a role in the dam breaches as bomb technology itself. Documents recorded anti-aircraft fire rates plunging by nearly 59% after cascade flooding severed telephone lines. For comparison, at the 1942 Hamburg port raids, intact communication meant 90% of flak batteries maintained standard rates. At Mana, only 41% managed normal output. Hastings wrote, "It was the communication collapse, not just the bomb, that won the night." The key difference was interconnected, decentralized defenses at Hamburg, but clustered, vulnerable nodes at the Ruhr. Research published in 2021 using cross-listed casualty rosters and bomb assessment imagery calculated revised casualty numbers. Previous estimates stated 1,200 deaths and 2,000 displaced. Current evidence supports over 1,650 fatalities and nearly 3,000 civilians rendered homeless, a 37% and 50% increase, respectively. Some historians, such as Tom Holland, argue industrial disruption was brief, citing rapid dam repairs and steel output recovery. However, the mainstream position, supported by factory production logs, indicates local industry was crippled for 6 weeks. Analysis by the Imperial War Museum in 2018 confirmed the communication failure's crucial role through systematic source triangulation. The debate continues, centering on whether psychological or material impacts proved more decisive in the outcome. Harold Atkinson, Flight Lieutenant, 617 Squadron, age 26, from Huddersfield, Yorkshire, was stationed at RAF Scampton on the night of May 16, 1943. A schoolteacher before volunteering for the RAF in 1940, Atkinson was assigned as bomb aime on Lancaster AJB. At 0022 hours, he confronted the decision to manually override a malfunctioning release timing switch while lining up for his upkeep drop. In his 1972 memoir, Atkinson recalled, "In that instant, it was my thumb or disaster for the crew." His action released the bomb just 14 meters before the critical distance, allowing the aircraft to complete its run without incident and saving all 7 crewmen. Atkinson suffered temporary hearing loss from the explosions and resumed teaching after demobilization. Interviewed in 1998 at age 81, he said, "We improvised because hesitation meant death. That hour, we were the plan." He died in 2001 in Yorkshire. His diary is held by the Imperial War Museum. Lieutenant Klaus Berger, anti-aircraft platoon leader, 22nd Flak Division, experienced the same raid from the Mana Dam's west bank. Captured after attempting to organize a local defense amid blackout conditions, his interrogation on May 20, 1943, revealed shock at the British attack's precision and speed. Berger reported, "We did not know the bombs could skip. Our fire was scattered. No orders were received." After the war, Berger returned to Dusseldorf and, in 1961, corresponded with former 617 aircrew. He verified the collapse in communications but disputed claims of coordinated panic, asserting many defenders remained at posts. Frau Gisela Bruning, civilian, resident of Naheim-Huston downstream from the Mana, was caught in the nighttime flooding. Forced from her house by the rapidly rising water, she sheltered 11 neighbors in an attic. Post-war medical records show Bruning developed severe PTSD, diagnosed in 1947 when limited treatment options were available. Her case reflected the trauma of hundreds who lost homes. By 1965 she helped found a local survivors association. Her testimony, later used in Ruhr Dam memorials, became part of British and German oral history projects. Such impact influenced West German policy on civil defense and trauma support. These individual experiences, when examined across over 2,500 documented British and German accounts, revealed patterns that shape the wider Allied doctrine for precision strikes on critical infrastructure. Within 30 minutes of the Mana Dam breach at 0048 hours on May 17, 1943, electrical output in the Ruhr Valley dropped by 78 megawatts as power plants at Naheim and Huston were inundated. Oberstleutnant Rudolf Weiss at Ruhr Regional Command received confirmation at 0102 hours of failure in communication nets covering a 5-kilometer front line. Based on this, Weiss ordered anti-aircraft batteries to switch from coordinated flak concentration to autonomous engagement, affecting 286 troops across 5 defensive sectors. Units previously assigned to power plant protection were rerouted to breach containment, deploying 2 Mauli vehicles and 4 platoons for emergency response. By 0120 hours, German anti-aircraft fire rates across the target area fell from 1,100 rounds per minute to 402, a 63% drop, enabling 617 Squadron to complete attacks on subsequent dams 27 minutes earlier than projected. Within 2 days, operational strategy shifted. Operation Bellicose, scheduled for June 20, was accelerated by 4 days due to early neutralization of Ruhr hydro infrastructure. Air Vice Marshal Ralph Cochrane modified bomber allocations, assigning 24 additional Avro Lancasters to support follow-on raids on Friedrichshafen. This came at the expense of 10 squadrons originally tasked to northern mining interdiction, delaying those efforts by nearly a week. Casualty expectations for 617 Squadron were revised. Original estimate 105 aircrew, actual 92 killed or wounded, a 12% reduction linked to lowered enemy fire. Bomb consumption changed accordingly. Upkeep and adaptation of tallboy munitions rose by 18% for anti-infrastructure missions post-dam raid. By August 1943, the Battle of the Ruhr's tempo was affected. The vital war transport hub at Hamm was secured by Allied forces on August 5, 2 weeks ahead of schedule, preventing German reinforcement of the northern Ruhr flak envelope. The destroyed dams forced German engineers to devote 7,500 workers to emergency repairs, delaying defensive improvements on the Atlantic Wall by 6 weeks. Supply lines remained compromised until mid-September, impairing 8 scheduled German supply convoys over 8 weeks. Command changes followed. Oberstleutnant Weiss was reassigned to Berlin training duty in September 1943. 9 officers received reprimands for defensive lapses. British Bomber Command Doctrine adopted updating flak suppression tactics by October, standard for 5 group operations by November 1943. The war's overall timeline in the West shifted. Allied plans for the combined bomber offensive, originally phased for September 1943, began on July 25, a 6-week advance. By September, 3,300 square kilometers of the Ruhr were under tight Allied air control, compared to an original projection of November. The Dambusters raid freed 43 heavy bombers and 180 ground staff for Italy's Salerno invasion by September. This change allowed Operation Avalanche to proceed with full air support, documented as a decisive factor in Allied success there. The German High Command, believing dam defense was impregnable, was disabused of this by June, prompting major reallocation of flak units across Western Europe. These operational shifts informed strategic decisions at the highest levels of command throughout the summer of 1943. Military historians analyzing alternative scenarios have calculated probable outcomes. If the critical communication breakdown concurrent with the Mana Dam breach had not occurred, the Allied combined bomber offensive could not have commenced major Ruhr attacks until September 1943, approximately 6 weeks later than the actual July 25 start date. This delay is attributed chiefly to the Ruhr Dam's protection of downstream factories, which would have maintained electricity and flood security, forcing bomber crews to select less vulnerable alternate targets or return at greater risk. Max Hastings's 2012 review estimated an additional 350 to 500 Allied aircrew casualties would have resulted from repeat attacks and heightened German flak effectiveness under intact command control. Further, Ruhr industrial centers would have remained under German control into late September 1943, 6 weeks longer than occurred according to factory production and flooding recovery logs. The German High Command would have retained enough power and water infrastructure to delay Operation Avalanche in Italy, potentially shifting the broader Mediterranean campaign timetable by at least a month. Comparing this dam raid to other key air operations in the European theater, the Dambusters raid involved 133 personnel, affected infrastructure across a 50-kilometer corridor, and caused a 6-week delay in German recovery, resulting in over 1,650 deaths and 7,500 German workers diverted. The 1942 Hamburg port raid committed 235 bombers, struck a wider area but produced only a 3-day operational pause. The Peenemünde raid in August 1943 saw 596 bombers, delayed V-weapon deployment by only 2 weeks. The British Joint Services Command and Staff College and the U.S. Air War College study Operation Chastise alongside Hamburg and Peenemünde because it demonstrates the principle that disrupting command and control achieves greater strategic results than damage to materiel alone. Roughly 18% of the Ruhr campaign's targets were directly neutralized by the dam breach, compared to 7% by Hamburg's burns. Max Hastings ranked the Dambusters raid third among 11 pivotal Allied bombing operations based on combined disruption metrics. The academic consensus views the Dambusters raid as a significant inflection point. The Imperial War Museum's 2018 survey supports the interpretation that the unique disruption of German communications produced a multiplier effect beyond physical damage. Military historian Tom Holland contends the principal strategic lever was psychological, forcing Germany to overhaul defensive doctrine and commit thousands of personnel to infrastructure recovery. Primary documents from both RAF and Luftwaffe confirm agreement on the raid's operational shock value. Declassified Allied and German records resolved prior debate about the relative impact of communication loss versus bomb effects. The current consensus holds that Operation Chastise critically accelerated the Allied air campaign. It advanced the timetable, reduced aircrew casualties, and depleted German resources across several fronts. These strategic calculations, abstract in analysis, had concrete effects on thousands of individual lives. Harold Atkinson, flight lieutenant, 617 Squadron, who served as bomb aime on Lancaster AJB, returned to Huddersfield, Yorkshire, in 1946. After demobilization, he resumed his teaching post and spent 4 decades promoting aviation history through lectures and school programs. During the 1970s, Atkinson dedicated 5 years establishing the Huddersfield Dambusters Memorial. In a 1998 interview with the Imperial War Museum, he remarked, "You train for every clockwork turn, but in those minutes, all that mattered was the crew beside you. What happened over the dam stayed with every one of us." Atkinson remained in contact with 2 surviving crew and published a diary now catalogued at the Imperial War Museum's archives. He died in 2001 at age 84 in Yorkshire. The Mana Dam Memorial at Manizia, Germany, was formally dedicated on May 17, 1965. Its central monument features sculpted flood markers signifying historic water levels from the night of the breach, honoring civilians, defenders, and aircrew casualties alike. Annual commemorative ceremonies each may attract approximately 3,000 visitors, including German, British, and Allied dignitaries. The 80th anniversary in 2023 included a joint British-German wreath-laying and survivor testimonies. At the Royal Air Force College Cranwell, Operation Chastise is integral to the Advanced Bombing Strategy syllabus, illustrating the necessity of targeting command networks. In 1978, the RAF revised its operational doctrine, emphasizing communications disruption in all precision attacks, affecting training for more than 900 aircrew annually. The Bundesarchiv in Koblenz preserves over 600 reports and 88 oral histories from the dam's raid, providing researchers worldwide access to original materials. The tactical insights from May 1943 continue to inform modern military operations. The doctrine of targeting enemy command and control, proven at the Ruhr, directly shaped NATO's approach in Operation Allied Force, Kosovo, 1999, as confirmed by a 2004 RAND study. The technical problems with upkeep led to a requirement for redundant fusing and blast-resistant cabling in post-war ordnance lessons evident in the development of the GBU-28 bunker buster, introduced in 1991. The raid's exposure of command structure vulnerabilities prompted the 1984 NATO Standard for Decentralized Battlefield Communications. Today, the Manizia site is preserved as a historical monument and education center, receiving over 30,000 visitors each year.